Welcome to this session, which is about financing and investment. So my name is Theirry Baujard, and I'm running a company called Media Deals. I will explain about it. So the idea is to show you in 15 or 20 minutes, so it's going to be very short, about different points from this idea from an investor point of view. You have to think that I'm really looking onto what investors are thinking when they're looking at a business like you, to this idea of the expectation. What do they expect? Quickly, the content is really what is Media Deals very quickly. And then the question is, do you have an idea or do you have a real business for an investor? I think that could be useful for some of you. We'll talk a little bit about the Lean Canvas, because it's a tool that could be interesting for you. And after, it's really about better understanding investors, the expectation, and then hopefully you will have lots of questions about that. So Media Deals is a pan-European investment network. We're based in Berlin, and we started more than 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, and focusing just on the creative industry. So really at the crossroad between creative content and technology, but for the creative industries. We've been specializing really much more, I would say, on audiovisual, so film, VR, TV, on gaming, on music, and we are one of the partners of the DeFINE program. And for the last year and a half, we've been really looking into the fashion tech industry and got very, very excited about it, because we discovered a lot of interest in terms of investment. And a lot of very exciting startups as well. But yes, maybe with some support needed to really understand what do they need, what sort of investment or financing they need. So we are working on both sides. That means we are helping financiers to better understand the sector. So we're doing a lot of educational program. We do a lot of co-financing, co-investment scheme as well. And on the other side, we're helping startups, like a lot of you, being investment ready. So understanding what investors are looking for. I try to insist a little bit about that, because what we're doing is really, it's not really like a general business plan. Okay, what do you want to do? That's, of course, very important. But you need to understand what investors are looking for, who are these investors, and very importantly, what's their business model? How do they make money? I mean, investors want to make money. If they don't want to make money, it's philanthropists or sponsors or something else. But what we're talking about here, we are focusing really on investors. So people who want their money back, plus they want to make some money on top of that. Okay? So that sounds very simple and normal, but I can tell you, when I talk to startups, a lot of people don't understand what investors are looking for and what are they expecting. Okay? So we have a network, which is a European network. We have a lot of people from the north of Europe, to be honest, a lot of people from Scandinavia, from the Baltic countries, and then a bit from the UK, Germany, France. We have a good group in Italy now that we've been pushing for the last 3 years, and they are very interested in creative industries. And we are organizing and presenting companies all the time to them. I think I put a number, yeah, we presented about 500 companies to about 350 equity investors that we have. We have in our group regularly about 60 people who we can interact very easily and where we know what they want. Because this is the key, is to understand what they are looking for and not just having their names and thinking, okay, they are investing, but understanding, are they investing 50,000 euro, are they investing 1 million, and when and what, that's what we can do with our network. So the question I'm starting with, I mean, as I say, there are 3 points that I want to cover. The first point is really, what do you have for an idea? Do you have an idea and the question is, do you have a business? We just had a talk before about that, so that was a good introduction. So is it a business or not? And the question is, a business idea is a good idea, a market, so a clear market where you can really find some customers, and then there you have a business market, a business idea, okay? So again, this is very simple, okay, but you have really to think about it. Do you have a business idea, or do you have just a nice idea? Is there someone who needs what you want to offer? And how big is the need? How many customers? What's the market size of that? This is of course very important to do. So the two important questions that you have to ask is, the first is, what is it that I do well? You have to understand what can you bring, what is the added value you can bring to the market, so what do you do well? And the second question is, why should the customer care about that? Are they interested? Is it something that they need? It brings a solution to them? Or is it just nice to have, but in fact, I'm not going to buy it? So for example, if you do tests, if you do pilot, etc., people say, yes, I think it's very nice, very interested, but in fact, they are not ready to buy and to pay for it. Okay, so you have to really be careful about that. That's very simple, but that's what you need as the core business facts for you. And again, it's logical, but most of the time people really forget that very quickly and go into an idea or to a project without thinking about that. And that's what investors are looking for. So, well, you need to do business plan, at least planning the business, because it helps to understand your project, your company, to identify partners, to think about different scenarios, and especially if different scenarios don't work. I mean, if your plan A doesn't work, you were thinking of having customers, it doesn't work so well, what is the plan B, what is the plan C, etc. So that's very important. And of course, working on differentiation. Everybody talked about that all day. I saw that, of course, about USP, what makes you different. This is, of course, for investors, very important. And what you have to remember is that investors, they are looking at startups all the time. I mean, they receive projects all the time. They go to pitching all the time. So they see a lot of startups. So there's a good chance they will see a lot of things that are similar or a bit similar to what you do. So what is the differentiation? So what you need to do as well is to building trust, as I say. And exactly what is there is you need to have different options. Because as a startup, you're a young company, you don't have a lot of resources, you will need to change plans. It will change all the time. And this business planning is you're going to think about something, you're going to think about the business model, and the business model will change, definitely. I mean, there's nobody who stays with the original business model. You meet partners, you meet customers, you meet investors, and then you're going to change your business model in any case. So first, you have to do everything on Excel, so that you can change everything. Do formulas, that's something important to remember, and not just putting numbers, the formulas, because you're going to change that all the time. It's very important just to plan what you want to do. Okay? The objective of business planning is exactly always a bit the same, is really to attract investors, to attract partners, and explaining to them in a simple way. And this is very, very difficult. It's really a communication thing. Is what does your company do? What differentiates your company from competitors? And you have competitors. If you say you don't have competitors, forget about it. Nobody will believe you, and it's not true. How good is your product? Is it scalable? So that's a very important point for investors. If your business is not scalable, it's not interesting for investors. So I guess you all know what is scalable, but basically scalability is really about multiplying, selling more of this product at no marginal cost. That means it doesn't cost anything or very little to replicate the same product over and again. Okay, so software, SaaS model, things like that are very scalable. So I give you an example because I've seen that in many times in this industry. Is agency are not interesting for investors because you are working every time with a new client and you're looking for a new client every time. This is not scalable. There could be exceptions because there are always exceptions, but it's 2% exception. But if you have something based on agency model, it's not scalable. Okay? And that's not interesting for investors. But it is very interesting for banks, back to that. Okay? Because you have regular clients who will pay, etc. So that's very important. Do you have the right team? Of course, we always say what investors are looking for is a good team. What is a good team? What is the right team? Obviously, you are a young company. You cannot get all the best people, and you cannot get everybody. You cannot get a good CTO, a good CEO, a good sales guys, marketing. So this doesn't really matter, but you need to have a core team of maybe 2 founders or 3 or 1, and then maybe 1 or 2 people. And you say, and what you're looking for is other people. And you need money, you need investment to get to the better people, to the right people for you. Okay? So that you don't have the right team exactly today is normal, but that you have at least a part of it and you know what type of people you want, that's very important. The growth potential. So of course you're starting, so you don't know, today you don't make a lot of turnover. What is the growth potential? So you have to explain what do you think is going to be the market size, and is the market that you are targeting, is it big enough for an investor? Okay? If the market is too small, the investor will say, okay, I'm not interested to help you because what you want to do is limited to a too small market for me. Okay, so that's very important. Which asset do you have? So, for example, IP. Do you have a specific IP? Do you have a patent, or do you have something else? What can you do that? And then, specifically about investors, equity investors, you have to think about exit strategy. Okay, so exit strategy. I guess you know, but I'm just explaining quickly. Investors are coming into your company. They are buying some shares of your company. What they want is to sell this share to someone else. So this is very important to understand because it's the base of investment. If you don't understand that, you cannot understand really how an investor works. What they want is to take 20% of your company for 1 million, just saying, and what they want is to sell this 20% for 10 million to someone else. Okay? So I always say that because in a provocative way, you need to be sure that as a founder, as a creative person, you want to get into an investor who is going to sell to someone else that you don't know in 3, 4, 5 years. Okay? It is something that is very important to understand in terms of growth. What they want is to sell further. They don't want to keep this investment. There are exceptions, but 90%, that's what they want. So they could sell this share to a venture capital, they could sell it to a bigger fund, or they could sell it to a big company, to a Google, or, you know. It happens in different rounds. But what they want is to sell their share and making money out of it. So again, if you understand that, you understand as well that their interest is not to make revenues. It's not the first to do a lot of revenues and, for example, break even. I see a lot of startups saying, you know, we're going to be break even next year. Investors are not so interested in that. It's good to know, and it's interesting to understand the cost and the turnover, but that's not what they're interested. They're interested to create value and selling their share to a higher price. And they are not interested in getting 10,000 euros per month. That's not what they want. It's not investors. Banks are interested in that. Okay, so it's very, very different. So that's very important, and the return on investment, that you have an idea. I mean, of course, today, I guess at the point where you are, I think it's very difficult to know your return on investment, but you have to just think about it. It's the same with exit. Don't think too much about it. I mean, in terms of, okay, who could buy us, etc. I don't think you should spend too much time on that, but being aware that at some point it's gonna be there. And for example, to make sure that investors understand that you understand that, okay? That because they will ask you at some point, okay, you know, what do you think is going to be your exit strategy? And if you say, well, I don't want to exit, it stops there. So it's better to talk about it from the beginning. So business plan, it's all that. It's a bit, it could be a bit complicated, and as I say, it's changing, and also it can be very big. I think at the beginning you don't need to have a very long business plan. I think to do something simple is enough. And of course, what we are trying to use a lot is this lean canvas. That's a simple way to work on your product. So I would recommend really to use it, and if we have one-to-one mentoring session with some of you, we can go through that if you have some questions. But it's very important, and well, I'm just trying to put that. I don't know if you can read because it's quite high there, but really thinking about the problem you want to solve. What are the 3 top problems that you want to solve? What are the different solutions? And trying maybe to work with this order. Think about it from an investor point of view. I mean, from a customer point of view, it could be different. But from an investor point of view, what he wants is to see that you're going to solve a kind of problem to make it really scalable, to make it really big. What's important is to identify what is the problem, and then very quickly about the target customers. There have been lots of discussion, and at lunch we had also this discussion, is it B2C, is it B2B? This is very, very important to clarify who you want to target first, who are the target customers. It's really, really a very important point for them. And the value proposition, number 3, the unique value proposition, so the USP, what makes you different, it's very important as well. And you see the revenue model, the cost structure is coming really at the end. Of course, it's important, but today, at your point, as I say, I don't think it's possible to talk too much about it. Giving an idea about what sort of business model, what sort of cost you think you're going to have, but it's very, very broad, I would say. So don't concentrate too much on that. Concentrate on what is the problem, what is the customer, what is your USP, and the solution you're bringing. And if this is clear, I think that helps a lot. The idea, just some piece of advice for you is to do it quickly in one sitting. I mean, we always say that, to do some exercise, not to take too much time, but really go through the canvas and work on it in one go. It's better because you understand the logic between the different points. So again, it's an organic document that will change, etc., all the time. And as I say, if you don't know something today, that's okay. You don't have to do something perfect. Again, what investors are interested in is something that evolves and could change and could develop. If you come and say, okay, this is the problem, exactly the customer, and I don't want to do something else, I mean, I want to stick exactly to this plan, that's not what investors are looking for. They are looking for also someone who could be a bit flexible and be able to modify different aspects along the time. So yeah, you start with best guess and then iterate. The iteration model is very important for the lead canvas. So, and then this system that I think you guess, you know very well, is, ideas, produce your data, and then you learn and you measure what you've been doing to redo it and build further in a better way. So you have to do that all the time. That's why this idea of business planning, to do a big 25-page business plan or something like that is not necessarily important today. A canvas is good, and then to do maybe a few pages with some financials, I think it's quite important, but you're going to change that all the time. And then, once you have investors who start to be interested, and then they will want to discuss with you details, and then you can go in details, but with them. So that's very important. So finishing on understanding investors, what they are asking themselves, the investors. I mean, as I say at the beginning, they need to understand, why is this a business? Is it really a business? Is it the right time? This is very, very important. The timing is really a key point for a startup and investor. Investors do not have money all the time. You have to understand that. They have money and they invest in things, and then they're waiting for the exit to get the money back. Okay? So sometimes they are not ready, sometimes they don't have the money, sometimes they just have a small amount of money and they're waiting for more money next year, you know. So the timing is very important, and then the right team. And then, exactly, who is your customer? What does your customer value? What is very important for them? And can you deliver at the appropriate cost? Okay, so that starts to understand the implementation part. What investors are interested and looking for is to understand, I give you some money, how you're going to use it, and how can I make sure that the money you're using, you're going to implement what you said you will do. Can you do it? And when? By when? You know? So all this idea of implementation with the right cost is very important. Because they know, that's something important as well, they know that you will be doing many rounds of financing. I mean, if you're asking, I don't know, for 300,000 euro, you know, it's clear that you will need much more money at some point. So you will need to do more rounds, etc. So they want to understand what's going to be the way to make these rounds and at which cost and how you're going to implement your plan. And, you know, again, the same thing. For them, what they are thinking is there a need? Is there a problem? Is there a solution? And then we have the added value for the USP. Just quickly about what the investors know and what are the main reasons for startups to fail. The first one is there's no market, or the market is too small for investors. That's the first reason why startups are failing. The second is that they run out of cash because they start the money raising too late. Raising money takes a lot of time, it's very complicated, and takes you out of your business, so it's very difficult to do. You need to count at least 6 months, but for me, it's between, I mean, if you are really starting from scratch, it's really 6 months to 1 year. But if you think you can do it in less than 6 months, it's not going to happen. It's really a minimum of 6 months. And the third point is not the right team. So they have something interesting as an idea, but it's not the right team to implement it, to execute it. What they want is some kind of track record. So of course, you're going to say, we are new, it's a new company, we don't have track record. So, okay, the people, what you've done in the past, maybe some pilot project. I mean, you have to think about that, but they want to know that. They want target clients, as I say. They want to have idea of sales projection. Of course, they're not going to be right, but they want to see how you think, you know, what's the ambition you've got behind it. You know, if it's too small for them, they say, okay, it's not interesting. Revenue projection, implementation and marketing. And then who else is on board? So there's a good chance that there will be other investors or people who already put money, partners. Who is there? And can they work with them? Do they have the same objectives? You have a lot of investors who says, I'm investing only 50%, and you have to find someone else for the other 50%. So they want to know who else is going to be on board and if they can work together. Okay? So you have to work on a business pitch. So you know, it's a presentation of a few minutes. Match investment, as I say, all the time they're asking for match investment. How it's going to recoup, so the revenues, how it's going to work, who are the intermediaries, and thinking long-term about exit. And to finish on that, the idea is to understand what type of investors it could be interesting for you. So you see, you've got below a little bit, you know, less than 500,000 to 2 million. I mean, it depends a lot about the sector. It depends on the country. It depends on many things, but it's roughly that. And I mean, we are looking a lot at investors in this circle. Yes, I know. In this circle, you know, business angel, super angel, people who can really give you some money, what we call smart money. So with also contacts, etc. And normally people will expect you to come to see them once you've got already what you have before. So a bit of what we call sweat money, so what you've done, maybe some family and friends who gave you some money, some grants, some public funds, but you've got already that in place. That's what they are interested. And I know that Simon, after, will talk to you about how to do a good pitch and prepare a good pitch for this kind of thing. Thank you very much.